From Zella, what is the plan to eliminate the institutional systemic racist policies that are in the areas of economics, housing, and health?
Well, that's a big question to try to answer in a brief moment. So let me just focus on one.
But we've got a little time, so take some time.
Let me try to focus on one portion of that, and that is inequality, inequity in healthcare. Martin Luther King said that of all the inequities and injustices, inequity in healthcare is the most serious because it can literally cost people their lives. What we were seeing during the pandemic is this virus just ravaging communities of color, disproportionately killing Black Americans, Latino Americans, Asian Americans, with a ruthlessness. Now, there are a lot of reasons for that in terms of unequal access to care, but there's another pernicious problem, and that is that when people of color do access care, they often get inferior care because of bias. This is something that I've been working on, legislation to try to address this for several months now. I brought together a broad group of stakeholders, and I've introduced a bill, a health equity bill, that would essentially treat healthcare as a civil right, prohibit discrimination in access to healthcare, and make sure that there are remedies where healthcare institutions have a proven record of bias in the care that they give. When you see, for example, Black mothers go to hospitals for maternity care, and their outcomes are so much poorer, depending on where they seek health care, you can identify very real prejudice. And so, like the Fair Housing Act, which created a civil right in housing and an enforceable mechanism, we're doing the same in this bill in the area of healthcare. Now, that's just obviously one part of the puzzle. You asked also about the economy, and I think it's going to be vitally important that when we build back from this pandemic, that just as we did after World War II and the Great Depression and other cataclysms, that we build back a more just and equitable society with equal access to jobs and economic opportunities. And that, I think, is going to be critical as well. During the pandemic, we saw not only the pandemic adversely affect the health of communities of color, but even in things like access to capital through the PPP program, we saw a widening of that economic gulf as minority-owned businesses were far more likely to fail, far less likely to be able to access help. And for that reason, in subsequent legislation, we have had set-asides for minority-owned businesses to make sure that we were equitable in the distribution of resources. But let me just conclude by saying that we're going to get through this. This too shall pass. I think when you're in a crisis, it's hard to see when it's going to end. Sometimes it's difficult to see if it's going to end, but this too will pass. We will get through this. We will get back to life as we knew it. And until we do, there is a very important step for us to take. It is 2 weeks from tomorrow. We have an opportunity to do our civic duty and vote. So whoever you're voting for, I would encourage you to vote. Your health is on the ballot. The economy is on the ballot. Our democracy is on the ballot. I think without any discrepancy on either side of the aisle, we all recognize this is the most important election of our lifetimes. So make sure that your voice is heard. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman Schiff.